Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Evolve with Emily show. In today's episode, we are going to be interviewing Anais Goldberg. She is a first-generation American of Cuban and Mexican heritage. She is a mother to 3 young girls, including twins, and her passion lies in showing her audience how to make delicious and exciting food that heals the body from symptoms of inflammation. She is the founder of Cook Initutively with Anais, a holistic approach to wellness driven by her belief that the road to wellness starts in your kitchen. Her program teaches others how to cook using the best ingredients and preparation methods to maximize bioavailability and minimize inflammation. All of this is done while creating incredible flavors that you will savor and keep you satisfied, motivated, and away from self-sabotaging temptations. So if you guys are interested in hearing how to create healthy meals for yourself when you're having a busy week, how to choose the highest quality ingredients and eat for a radiant and youthful skin, as well as raising children to be conscientious of nutrition, food sources, and to have a healthy body image, then keep listening because this episode is for you. Anais Goldberg, welcome to today's show.
Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm doing great today, and I'm really excited to find out, before we dive into everything, what actually got you inspired to go down this path for yourself. What was your source of inspiration, and what has driven you to create a brand surrounding around food and healthy meals? What is your backstory?
There were several roads that led to this intersection of where I am right now. I've always loved cooking. I grew up in a strong Latino family where I was raised by my grandmothers pretty much, and always, they were the traditional homemakers, always watching them cook. And then when I started living outside of my family home, my love language was cooking for people. So I always wanted to entertain my friends and bring them over and just cook for them. And I always struggled with my weight as well in high school. Throughout high school, I was always doing these yo-yo diets and reading diet books and, sometimes thin, sometimes not. When I was in my early 20s, still in college, working full time, going to school at night, I got it in me that I wanted to do the South Beach diet. So I bought the South Beach diet book. I read it. And I realized that to succeed on the diet, I had to make all the food from that week's meal plan on Sunday because I had zero time. I was leaving my house at 6 a.m. and not coming home until 10:30 at night. So that's when I learned how to meal prep things. And I, just followed all their little recipes, even though I kind of knew what I was doing here and there. And it worked. And I was like, okay, that worked. So that just kind of taught me the principles of prepping to succeed for fitness, and also knowing that there is no way that you are going to maintain or achieve any health goals if you are eating out of the house every single meal. For so many reasons, it's so bad. Like even when you think you're eating something healthy, like big salad chain places, I promise you there is not extra virgin olive oil in that salad dressing that they're using because they are looking after their bottom line. And the cheapest oil they can get is an 80-20 blend of maybe olive oil, part canola oil. That is so toxic.
I think it's so important to mention that because a lot of people think, oh, I'm eating healthy, I'm eating a salad out. And in reality, they don't realize that what they think they're buying, the extra virgin olive oil truly isn't it. Because you just wouldn't think that it would be legal for them to do that, but it quite frequently is.
It is. It's a very frustrating thing about the United States that there's very little regulation on the food industry.
Okay, so you started meal prepping, you started realizing the benefits of, how important it is to be prepared with your nutrition. And what kind of results did that create for you within your health journey?
It just became a habit for me. I stopped, having to follow the South Beach diet religiously. And then I just realized that when I made my own food and made a giant batch of salads on Sunday and separated all my little salad dressings that I made myself, and then took those to work all week long, that I was able to maintain a certain physique throughout my life. So I lived my 20s, wasn't really concerned about my weight anymore because I knew what to do to maintain myself. Lived my 30s, then I had my kids. I had 3 kids in the course of 19 months.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
So,
Do you mind if I ask at what age did you have them?
yes, my first was at 34,
Okay.
and then I had twins when I was 36.
Oh, wow. That must have been quite the surprise. Oh, hey, you're having two.
Yeah, I know. I was like, okay, well, let's just get the second one over with.
Right.
Have 2 kids close together. They'll be good friends. Oh, and by the way, it's twins.
That's awesome.
It was quite the shock, but
Mhm.
it's really been the best gift of my life. I was not the type of person that lost all their weight through breastfeeding. I nursed all my kids, and that just did not happen for me. So I struggled after my children to lose the weight. I lost it, but it just wasn't the same, It was still, there were some stubborn pounds on there, and I kind of accepted that, well, whatever, who cares? I've
Mhm.
got 3 little ones. I've got bigger fish to fry than my weight loss journey, and I'm over this. And I went to the gym. I was doing Barry's boot camp at
Mhm.
least 3 days a week, and was just like running at like a 12 speed, and whatever. Nothing happened. One night, after my kids went down to bed, I was just passively listening to a podcast, and I heard Dr. Stephen Gundry on it. He had just come out with the Plant Paradox book, and he kept talking about autoimmune disease, and he specifically kept mentioning Crohn's disease. So I have a family member who has Crohn's disease, and I was like, oh, I should send this to her. I'm going to send her this podcast, and I'm going to also send it to her husband, who's a doctor. So I sent it to both of them, and I said, you should look into this for your Crohn's disease. And he replied back to me, why don't you do it for your thyroid disease? Oh, I had never thought of my hypothyroidism being an autoimmune disease,
Mhm.
because it was just something that I managed throughout my life with medicine and whatever. Didn't think about it anymore. So I'm really into physical challenges.
Mhm.
I'm sure I know what that's like.
Oh,
That's
absolutely.
so I was like, yes, I'm going to do that. I'm going to get off my thyroid medicine. And, that was my only goal. I'm like, let me see if I could do this. So I got the book. I started following it religiously, like I do when I commit to things. And within 2 weeks of living this life of eliminating all inflammatory ingredients from my diet, I felt something that I had never felt before, which was a lack of pain and achiness in my shoulders and my hips and my neck, which I had just been attributing to the fact that I had 3 little kids and I was, picking them up all the time and all of that stuff. Just the wear and tear of your body. Oh, getting old. I hate people saying, I'm getting old. I'm like, this is within your control. You're not getting old. You're highly inflamed.
Mm.
But anyway, I couldn't
Yeah.
wait to.
I think it's important to mention because that's kind of just like a common phrase that we hear, right? Like, oh, I'm getting older and that's why it's hurting. And I think people, they don't realize that that's actually holding them back from finding a true solution to living a healthy life, a pain-free life, which is possible. It is possible
Yes.
to live that through many, many years. And if you're not, it's just important to look at, okay, what are some things that are in my control that I can start to make shifts and changes in? And food, I mean, we put food inside of our body every single day. So it's like the number one source that we should really look at to say, is my food affecting me in a negative way? And so I love that you were able to go down this journey and find for yourself that within as little as 2 weeks, you started feeling better. Like that's really incredible.
Yes. And I didn't even know I was feeling bad. I thought I was
Oh,
healthy.
wow. Yeah.
I just thought this was like a little physical challenge to see if I could get my thyroid medication from 100 micromilligrams to nothing. So I got it down to 25 micromilligrams. I feel great. I look better than I ever did in my life. Oh, also, which people are very interested in, all this weight that I had been struggling with and kind of just accepting, it started to just fall off.
Wow.
So I realized that I was a walking ball of inflammation. There were so many things, Emily, that I was just accepting as like old age. Oh, I have no control over this. When I would look at pictures of myself, I would recognize these like bags that that women in my family tend to have as they get older. And I was like, oh gosh, I'm going to need that eye surgery that my aunt had pretty soon. Mm-hmm. No, I never think about that again because it went away. That's all inflammation. My hair was starting to fall out. I've got as thick of hair now that as I did when I was in my early 20s. And all these things started to happen that I was basically reversing my biologic age. When I saw these things happen, I said, I'm never going back to eating the way I did before.
No kidding. So what do you feel like are maybe some common inflammatory foods that people may be consuming that they're unaware of that are just very high on the inflammatory list?
Oats drives me crazy with the oat milk and the oatmeal. And like, oh, you scroll through reels and you're like, let me show you a healthy overnight oats recipe. I'm like, and I just want to scream. I'm like, you are dumping sugar into your body the moment you wake up if you are eating overnight oats or putting oat milk into your coffee. It's such a source of a glucose spike.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you like to put in your coffee instead?
MCT oil.
Okay. And what's the reason for that?
It is a great mitochondria kickstarter. So it will really help you get into a fat burning mode. Mm-hmm. It'll really help you just burn calories throughout the day, give you energy. It's great for your brain and it keeps you satiated.
Yeah, which is important, especially first thing in the morning. And I find a lot of people, they either eat a big breakfast that they're not very conscious or intentional of, and they feel lethargic throughout the day. Or a lot of people actually end up skipping breakfast altogether. So do you recommend that people have breakfast? Do you skip breakfast? What's your method on that?
I skip breakfast. I do my coffee with the MCT oil and a little bit of inulin and acacia fiber. Mm-hmm. And then I put in a bunch of, spices in it to make it really yummy. And I really enjoy my coffee. And I don't feel like I need anything to eat until about 11 o'clock, maybe noon. So that's how I do my intermittent fasting. On the weekends, sometimes I want to have some eggs and crispy prosciutto and, an omelet. And of course, that's great. So I try to be conscientious of if I do a breakfast to make it at least 4 hours before I put anything into my mouth again, because your body needs that time to digest, to level out. You can't be snacking all day long.
It's one of those things like finding out how you operate the best because, everyone has different demands on their body and their schedule, what they do for work. And so really finding a method that works best for you. I've worked with a lot of nurses that are on their feet for hours and hours, and they're not able to get as many meals in as somebody who, maybe has more freedom to be able to cook at home. So they thrive under intermittent fasting, getting their food within a certain window. So I think it's, important to find what works best for you and your lifestyle and your work demands, your life demands. And also like if you have a family, because usually that will impact your eating and your times and schedules as well. So how do you balance creating healthy meals for yourself as well as your entire family throughout the week? Do you prep for the whole family? Do you prep your meals separate? Do you cook for the kids? How do you balance all of that as a wife and mother?
I'm still trying to figure it out.
Right.
No, it changes all the time. My philosophy is I make what I want to eat and what I know I should eat. And everybody else has to kind of fall into place. It's tricky with the kids because I've got 3 little girls and they all want something different. And I am not a line cook. So I tell them there's one dinner, but I try to give them a win. For example, if we're having salmon and broccoli, I'll also make a giant batch of white rice. Every week I make a gigantic white basmati rice. I know it will, if there's something that they're not going to, eat, I just want them to try it. Okay. And then I'm like, all right, you can have some rice. Or if there's a night that I'm going out to dinner with my husband and I don't want to, order them a pizza or I just need something for them. That's at least something that I can add some eggs to. I call it cena cubana, like our little Cuban comfort meal that we had growing up as a kid were white rice with eggs and bananas on top. And I'm like, cena cubana tonight. And they are happy as can be. And I know they
Aw.
get a little bit of resistant starch, some protein, and some bananas. They're happy. So I just try to give them a little bit of a win. I make a bunch of sweet potatoes that they have in their lunch, things like that, you know?
What have you found in your experience that helps to make your children health conscious while also helping them to have a healthy body image? What are maybe some things that you've done or that you do that you feel helps that?
I try to make them conscientious of the nutritional value of their food. So when they tell me that they want French toast in the morning, and every now and then I do it, but I also tell them, you can't just have this. There's no fiber in this. There's very little protein. So I try to make it. So what else are we going to have? And I'll put out an assortment of nuts, and I'll say to them, start, which nut do you want? Like, you need to have some protein, there's some fiber, and there's some fat in here. So you go ahead, and that's your choice, because kids like to have their own choice. They start to resist when I get too authoritarian with them.
Right.
Would you like the walnuts or would you like the almonds?
That's awesome.
They begrudgingly, I'll take the walnuts. I'm like, all right. And now we can move on. You can have your French toast. Let's have some bacon too. And I try to make them just aware of where's your fat, where's your fiber, where's your protein.
Yeah, that's great. And I love the focus on the nutrition versus the focus on what it's going to do to your body image or physique per se, because I think there's a lot that puts pressure on children these days, whether it be the news or magazines, social media, friends, peers that put pressure on the way that they look versus the way that they feel. So I love that you're starting with, okay, these are the main ingredients and elements that you need to feel good. You need protein, you need healthy fats, you need all of these things. So I love that that's your focus with them.
I always say to my girls, we don't comment on the shape of other people's bodies. So they know that. And I try to lead by example. I don't think they have ever heard me say anything about my own weight or somebody else's weight, because I always make it about how I feel and about living a long life and a healthy life. That's because that's what I want them to aspire to. I want, if they see that this is what I'm doing for my own personal health, and I say to them, you don't have to worry about me dying. You don't have to worry about me getting sick. And I'm doing this so that you don't have to worry.
I think that's great to lead by example and to show them that with being conscious and intentional with the way that you live your life and the food you put into your body, it's a form of self-love to take care of this one vessel that we have, right? So that you can live a long and a healthy life. And, I think there's a lot of parents out there that are just such incredible leaders and role models that really do help shape the way that the kids grow up. I come from a very health conscious family, and, at the age of like 5, I think we were drinking like barley green, like greens and, always just health food, everything. And we never really like went out to eat. If we did, it was like a treat here and there. And it really did create such healthy habits for me. It really created a desire to be healthy because I felt good. I was great in athletics. I felt I had more opportunity because I was healthy. So I love to see other parents that are instilling that in their children as well, because I'm definitely a product of that.
That's amazing. And I hope my girls can say the same thing, because I did not grow up. This is something that I've had to teach myself. For Cubans, sugar is its own food group.
That's awesome.
And an essential one at that. My grandmother used to make me sugar water after school.
No.
Yes.
That's a thing.
She would just dissolve some water, simple syrup, essentially. I would drink simple syrup as a child.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I want to go into finding the highest quality ingredients for yourself. What is the slow food movement and what is small food businesses?
I think it starts with awareness of where everything is coming from. I go to the farmer's market on Sundays or on Tuesdays, and I get to meet the people who have actually picked the food. And you form a relationship with them, you trust them, you ask them how it was raised. I love buying from a regenerative farm. the regenerative agriculture is the process of growing food, not just organically, but in a way that all the crops support each other. And I first learned about this in Italy. We went to Tuscany and we went and visited a little winery, a family winery that was hundreds of years old. And the owner was giving us a tour of the vineyards. And he said that they grow garbanzos in the same place that they grow tomatoes because the nitrogen from the garbanzos supports the tomatoes. And that just blew my mind to think of that they were so conscientious of that. And then, years later, that was the first time he didn't even say it was regenerative agriculture. That's just what they do. And now it's starting to become more of a word that we're hearing. Thank goodness. So that's very important to me, just to know where the olives are grown, because you're going to have a higher polyphenol count if you are using a certain type of olive in a certain type of climate, and it's processed properly and it has a short window of travel. It's not coming from, shipping containers that are overheating and all of this stuff. So I try to be conscientious about getting my olive oil from California and keeping it in a glass bottles to preserve the integrity of the oil, and also where our meat sources are coming from. There is such little regulation on what could be labeled grass-fed, grass-finished. They can just, and pasture-raised, they can just, give a cow a little bit of access to grass and throw a grass-fed label on it when it's still being raised industrially, being fed corn and soy. It's being able to speak to the people who are selling the food directly and know where it comes from and know what the conditions are of that farm. To me, gives me more peace of mind that I'm consuming a product that is going to have the best bioavailability for myself and also make me feel the best.
When you first started learning about all of this and realizing how important it is to find where your food is sourced from, did you make a switch with all the food all at once? Was it a slow switch? Talk to me about that process.
I'm an all or nothing girl. So
Okay.
I literally went into my pantry and started just throwing out grains, throwing out Costco packs of chicken that I had, or giving them away, or, hey, can I give you some frozen chicken? And everybody was like, oh, what? I'm like, well, I'm not going to eat this anymore. And I went and started sourcing my food from places. Most of them are delivery places that are, pasture raised and grass fed, grass finished. I actually stopped buying my meats from any place in the United States at all. Meats I buy from Australia or New Zealand because there they really do have very stringent regulations on what can be considered grass fed and grass finished. You can taste the difference in the quality.
That's what I was going to ask is, since you did make that switch all at once, what differences did you notice in the way that your food tasted, but also in how you felt? And if there was any difference in the way that you looked, what did this transition look like for you?
When you go to restaurants, and I've asked them, before, so is the steak grass fed? And they're like, they always say to me, especially like in a very fancy steakhouse, they'll say to me, oh, it is grass fed and then corn finished for maximum flavor. I'm like, no, the corn does not give it maximum flavor. The best flavor comes from 100% grass-fed, grass-finished. And I've heard people say, oh, it doesn't taste good. I'm like, yeah, that's because you're getting it from Ralph's that has the label grass-fed, grass-finished, but I promise you it's still an industrial piece of meat. And I have people over to my house. I will make a, Australian Wagyu steak, and they tell me that it's the best piece of steak they've ever had in their life, and that they feel great the next day. My husband always says, oh, I get the meat sweats when I go to a steakhouse. I'm like, yeah, it's all that. It's the quality of the food that you're eating there.
Wow. And that's something that I feel like is so normalized, because I've heard that phrase too, right? Like they go to the steakhouse and get meat sweats. And I think it's because of how much they're consuming, but it actually could just be what you're consuming and the quality of it.
Exactly. It's the quality. It's not the fact that you're eating a bunch of meat. It's the fact that that meat is dripping in corn-fed butter.
Mm-hmm.
It was raised on corn and soy. It's just a big bite of toxins.
Right. So, okay, if people want to switch from the food that they're currently eating, they're shopping at Ralph's, they're buying, maybe they're not even buying grass fed right now, they're just buying whatever they can get their hands on, but they want to start making shifts from this more toxic processed way of eating to a more natural way of eating, this regenerative farm type of eating. Where do you think is like the number one source, or maybe the easiest source for them to initially start making those switches? Are there options in the grocery store? Do they need to go to a farmer's market? Should they be buying online? Where are some resources that you can send them to?
I would say to start at your farmer's market, local farmer's market. And most of the time there is a meat vendor there. Most likely the meat vendor at the farmer's market is selling grass-fed, grass-finished, small farm meats.
And are those all the questions that you would recommend?
Also, when you buy eggs, what are the chickens eating? You know what? I love getting my eggs at the farmer's market because I can come back and ask questions about the yolk. There's a vendor that I always get my eggs from. And the yolk, most of the time, is very, very bright orange.
Mm-hmm.
And then one week, the yolk was so pale.
Oh,
So
weird.
then, so I came back and the next week I said, what happened to the yolks? They were like nearly white. He said, oh my gosh, it was so hot, the chickens barely ate. So he had the exact answer as to why the yolks were that color. And to me, that is so invaluable to be able to ask the person who you're buying the eggs from what happened, and they could tell you the chickens hardly ate and it made the yolks really pale.
Yeah, and I think it just connects us to our food and the natural rhythm and cycle of life in general. There's this show on Netflix, I believe it's called Alone. Have you heard of it? Where they basically like drop these people who are these survivalists, right? Like they know how to create their own structure for living. They know how to kill their food, butcher it, cook it, eat it. So they drop them off in the middle of nowhere. They have to fend for themselves. And I only watched a few episodes, but you had to watch them hunt down sometimes all day long, and all they could find was a squirrel, right? And they would hunt the squirrel, they would kill the animal, and in that they would take a moment and say this little like prayer of gratitude to the animal and say thank you so much for your life. And then they would cook it and they would eat it, and that would sustain them. And for me, watching from the outside in, it really connected me more to the cycle of life and to our food, because as someone who's always just bought food at the grocery store, I've never had to hunt for my food. There's been some disconnection from it. You know, I look at it as just all this meat and I put it in my shopping cart. And I remember the next time going to the grocery store after that, I looked at the meat and I just had a different awareness. And I was like, oh, wow, you know, I don't actually need to buy 4 of this or 4 of that. Like, imagine if I had to hunt and kill that, you know, I'm going to take what I need and I'll come back later if I need more, but I'm just going to take exactly what I need and no more. And it kind of just gave me a new appreciation for that cycle of life. So, and I think that, you know, what I'm hearing from you in attending the farmers markets and fostering these relationships with the people that have the animals and provide the food, it just creates more points of connection. And, you know, what a beautiful relationship to have. I'm all about relationships and learning from the natural cycles and seasons of life. And I think nature and even the food cycle is a really beautiful way to just be connected back to Mother Earth and nature.
Absolutely. You nailed it.
We talked about meal prepping earlier, but let's say, you know, a lot of people get into the habit of meal prepping, they're doing really well, and then they go on a trip, or, you know, they have a crazy week that really sends them off, and it's really difficult for them to bounce back after, let's say, the holidays, right? Because the holidays are coming up here. How can people bounce back from overindulging, and what are some kind of next steps that they can take to avoid getting back in that cycle and pattern of, oh, well, I've already eaten off of my program, so I'm just going to continue eating off. I'll wait for the new year. You know, what are some steps that they can take to get back to their routine and healthy eating?
There's so many avenues that you can take. There's not, you know, a one size fits all, but if I want to just get back to it really fast, I'm like one of those rip the Band-Aid off people. So if I've like completely fallen off the wagon, like had like a crazy weekend with lots of food and everything, I'll do a 36-hour fast on Monday.
Okay.
And that doesn't sound as gnarly as it is. All it is one day of not eating, because you go to bed on Sunday night. The next day on Monday, I do my coffee still with the MCT oil that helps keep me satiated. And then you just go the day without eating. You go to bed Monday night. On Tuesday, you wake up, and if you want to have a nice high protein breakfast, go for it. And you're going to see that it's going to shed a lot of bloat and all of that.
I think one thing I'd like to mention is I think that the intention behind the fast is really important. We have, people from all walks of life, all different backgrounds when it comes to food, body image, and just the different things that they've navigated. And so I think if people are listening and they're not very educated on fasting in general, to go do some research and educate yourself on the benefits of a fast, like a 36-hour fast or 24-hour fast, because it's actually really incredible for your digestion. It's really incredible to just reset everything on the inside. And so I think if you do it from the educational piece of these are all the ways that it's going to benefit my digestion, my mental clarity, reduce inflammation, and you do it from that intention, I think it can be a really incredible tool. I would really want to encourage people away from doing it with the intention of, I feel fat, so I'm not going to eat, right? Because there are people that would have that mentality with it. And I believe that is when they will go into the really unhealthy eating patterns and cycles. So I just wanted to mention that because there might be some people that aren't too educated on fasting, and in which case I would say there's so much research out there. It's so good for you. I like to do a fast. I don't really have like a routine with how I do it, but I definitely like to incorporate it. And I definitely feel so good when I do that. It really just gives your body such a reset in so many different ways. And with the fast, there's different ways to do it, water fast, food fast, liquid fast, whatever you want to do. But for me, I find it really does help me just kind of like reset all of that, definitely lose inflammation, and I'm able to, go back into my regular way of eating and healthy lifestyle the next day. And I feel like my body soaks up the nutrients even more, because it's had some time away. So when you do put those healthy, good nutrients in there that make you feel your best, I feel like your body just absorbs it so well.
You're so right. And also it gets you out of that craving cycle. So when you have a weekend where you're eating a bunch of junk, say you have like, a Memorial Day weekend type of thing, and you're away and you're snacking all day long on chips, and, someone brings cookies and whatever, your body gets into this craving cycle of wanting all that stuff over and over and over again. And then the fast, like you said, will help reduce the inflammation, but it also help you stabilize yourself and get out of that cycle of the cravings. And it's hard for a little bit. And that's why I use the MCT oil with the coffee, because it kind of like helps diminish that craving. It resets everything.
And something I like to do is I like to actually put something in place of the times I would be eating. So rather than breakfast, lunch, and dinner, if I'm experiencing that fast, I'm always drinking my water, maybe some tea, but instead, maybe I am reading a book. Maybe I am journaling and working through some things. I place an intention on that time so that the time is not, it's not missed, it's not wasted, and it's not focused on the food that I'm not eating. Instead, it's just redirected.
I love that.
Yeah, sometimes I want to grow spiritually. And so I'll use that time and I'll say, okay, well, I would normally eat for 30 minutes. So for 30 minutes, I'm actually going to grow spiritually. I'm going to, foster and water those things in my life. Or I'm going to call a friend that I haven't talked to and I'm going to see how they're doing. Just switch your focus away from the food altogether.
Yes, that's a great mindset tip. I usually use the time to, do something around the house, like empty out a closet or something. But I like your self-growth idea much better. Also, stay off social media, because especially if you follow a lot of food content people like I do, and you're just scrolling, watching people make like a, baked brie or something. It's like, don't, just turn it off.
Yes. Oh man,
don't look at anybody's food reels.
Such a good point. And I actually like to do social media fasts as well. So hey, you could pair it together, do a social media and a food fast all together, reset your mind, body, spirit, and come back so much better the next day. I actually would challenge people, educate yourself on a fast, and then let's all do a day fast. I feel like that would be a lot of fun.
That would be a lot of fun. We should do that together.
Yeah, I'm so down. I would actually love to do that.
Okay, let's do it.
Awesome. Maybe we could do it after Thanksgiving.
Yes.
After Thanksgiving, we could have a little, 36 hour, 24-hour, whatever we want to do, fast of social media and food and have some intentions behind it. I feel like that would be a great exercise.
I think so too. I think a lot of people would join as well.
Well, okay. So if people are interested in learning more about you and what you do, potentially working with you, where's the best place for them to go?
You can go on my Instagram, Anais Goldberg, my website, cookwithanais.podia.com. You can check out my supplements at biologicyouth.com.
And I will make sure to place all of your links below. So for everyone listening, if you want to connect with her, you can go ahead and just click the direct links there. You'll be taken to her pages. Make sure to follow her on social. Thank you so much for being on today's show and sharing all of your expertise with us. We have really enjoyed having you, and I look forward to our fast.
Yes, I do too. Thank you, Emily.
Awesome. You guys know the drill. If you enjoyed today's show, please do us a favor and tag us on your Instagram stories. Feel free to text it to a friend, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Have a great day, guys.